notice, and it's a Bryant I told you too. That's what I want to do is be 100% honest with you, so you get good feedback. And that's what you need going to a powerlifting meet. And then finally, save your best for the platform. So we had, there was one person at the meet, or at the thing we did in Delhi, that was talking about taking his deadlift opener 2 days before the meet. That's insane. You have to have your best on the platform. You have to. And you don't want to leave it in the gym. So if you're worried about your openers, there's a bigger problem altogether. If you're going to a powerlifting meet and your openers aren't like 100% slam dunk, worst day of the year hungover, that's a problem. There's a no-brainer at that point. So you need to save your best for the platform. Okay, so now your meet strategy. Okay, I recommend first off, you do not want to change like your supplements the week of the meet. So if all of a sudden, you don't just change brands and multivitamins or something. Because what if you get some weird reaction or something? So you want to keep that as good as possible, that meet. Okay, weight cuts. I do not recommend, so especially powerlifting so fragmented. This is not MMA where we got one federation and you fight your rival. This is like very unorganized. So this is for you. Powerlifting is for nobody but you. You do it for yourself, okay? So why cut weight, okay? If it's for like some kind of world record, fine. Some kind of money competition, fine. Just a regular meet, and you're starting out, I do not recommend cutting weight, okay? Warm up. Have your warm-ups planned ahead of time, but be flexible. A lot of times, I guess this wouldn't apply as much here, but in the United States, we use pounds, not kilos. So a lot of times, all the meets pretty much show the kilos. So it's kind of weird to go to a meet and you have to warm up with pounds and lift kilos, which shouldn't be that big of a deal, but you want to have your warm-ups planned ahead of time of things they're going to actually have. So they they might, for instance, you want to go 167.5, right? So they have the plates here. A lot of times when you warm up, they're not going to have those small plates, so you need to plan your jumps and what they're going to probably have there at it and be somewhat flexible, because besides warming up, you think about it like, okay, this is okay, so it's going to be, to me it's kind of cool. It's not like hot or cold, but it's to the cooler side. Okay, so it's going to be, let's say it was in the summertime, it's not air conditioning, you're going to warm up less because you're naturally warmer just walking around. So keep that into a meet. Okay? Obviously, go ahead. Yeah, and by the way, anybody has questions along the way, ask. You don't have to wait till the end, okay?
So in terms of planning the weight for warm-ups, what should be the last weight we should plan, just before the opener? Some percentage of that, right?
For me, I would go about within 10% of it or so.
So till 90% of the...
Yes, I was the deal. Yeah, 90%.
90% of the...
Yeah, 90% or so. In that range. Don't be exact, but right about there. And then, so squats. Here's how I like to plan for a meet, okay? So squats, you're the most conservative, least aggressive, simply because there's the most variability of problems there. If a judge is being really tight on the calls, or if a judge is being really loose on the calls, because you're not taking power for a moral stand if they're letting you get away with high squats. I mean, squat high. It ain't your problem. So, but anyways, so I like to be the least aggressive on squats. So if you're in any doubt, you're more conservative with squats, because if you've ever had a really heavy squat, it can wipe you out the rest of the day, okay? So I like to open up anywhere from 89 to 92% of what you're thinking you'll hit in squat, okay? So I call the 89%, so I call safe. 92% is called reach. So if I was coaching you for a powerlifting meet, I would chart out your attempts and say, here's safe, that means you're not feeling so hot, something weird happens. Reach means you feel like a superhero. Then I put a normal middle number, okay? And then I'd go the second attempt on squat, I would go 94 to 97%, depending. Then on the third attempt, 98 to 102%, okay? But if you're gonna sandbagging, I guess they should use slam, American slang, but like if you're gonna take it easy on a lift, take it easy on squats. You got the rest of the day. Okay, bench pressing. Bench press, I go the same percentages I would on squats, but the difference being, I would, like on squats, I'd err to the side of caution. Bench press, I err to the side of aggression, because if you miss a bench press, that's not going to affect your deadlift. You just missed a bench press, so like it's not what you want to happen, but it's not going to affect the rest of the day. Okay, deadlifts is where you let it hang. That's going to be your best one, because generally people get the biggest carryover into deadlift because it's the least skilled of the movements. So you can really use your aggression and all that stuff to help you lift the most amount of weight. Okay? And I would go 89 to 91% of there on your opener. Again, using that, safe, middle reach. Go second attempt on deadlifts anywhere from 95 to 98%. And then finally, obviously, this is assuming you made the previous attempt. Second attempt is 95 to 98. And obviously, this is assuming you got the first attempt. Okay, then finally finishing off 99 to 104%, depending, because you can get a lot of carryover in deadlift. So, okay. Then finally.
So, if in the squat, suppose this was the first attempt and it got failed because of a depth issue and not a strength issue. So, would you recommend increasing in the second attempt or having your first attempt?
If you're an experienced powerlifter and you know yourself and you know that that was the issue, I would just go for the second one. If it's a first meet, I'd do the first one over. So if you're somebody that doesn't really, depends on your personality too. Like I'm pretty adaptable to situations. Like I don't get stressed out that much on stuff like this. So I would just jump to the next one. But if you're somebody that hasn't proven yourself to be that kind of person yet, I would do the first one over, because you're not, the meet's over if you don't get past the squats, right? Okay. Then also, this is kind of funny, but you guys want to hear a strength secret for guys specifically?
Yeah, of course.
Mom, okay,
Go
say
on.
this? Like,
Sure.
not gonna say anything? Don't ejaculate the week of your meet. That's serious. Okay? Just that week, you're going down like a raging bull.
Everybody's riding furiously.
What's that?
Everyone's riding furiously.
Duly noted.
Everyone's writing it down furiously.
Write it down.
Writing it down, yeah.
Okay. It works. Be a raging bull. Okay. So, anyways, now off of that subject, but, okay, who in here, is there anybody here that's like a master's lifter?
I'm sorry?
Is anybody
Master's
over
lifter.
40
You'll be a
else a
master's
master's
lifter,
lifter?
right?
Okay, cool. So, let's talk about some ways as people get older, what you can do to help keep your lifts increasing, okay? So this is just for masters. It's just like people as you get older, what you do, okay? Number one is form above all else, okay? The older you get, the more important it's going to be to continue to do things with good form, okay? So like, if like your arms, like personally, I haven't had very many injuries ever, but the one I did have is I've had elbow surgery. And a lot of it's from like when I was like really young, I do like really heavy like cheek curls and tricep extensions. Like, I mean, I'm talking like crazy heavy. And like, so you think about it, like, yeah, they definitely work to make your arms grow, but at the same time, there's a price to pay for it. So as you get older, you need to be more aware of those type of deals. Okay. Second, so
The biceps starts from your forearms.
What?
The biceps are going from your forearms.
there you go. So not on the right one. See, I told you this. Gives a nice repeat. Okay. So lighter. So here's another way. So lighter. This is kind of lends to the same point. It's lighter weight on the single joint movements. Okay. So your isolation movements when you get older, you especially want to be careful on. So like your tricep extensions, hammer curls, that kind of stuff. you want to really focus on the mind-muscle connection, not just keeping weight. So at no point in my mind are you just trying to just go crazy, but as you get older, that becomes more important. So we can also change this into how to more safely train. Okay. Next strategy would be a three-phase warm-up. That simply means a general warm-up, a dynamic one, specific warm-up. And I really feel like this concept's getting overdone because like I see so many people like doing like weird stuff on like the tennis balls for like an hour back seriously. I hope that's giving you some kind of pleasure because it ain't helping your lifts, but whatever. But like in all seriousness, just something to get a little blood flow going. So it could be, something as simple as just like going on that elliptical for a couple minutes. Dynamic warm up. Go on YouTube. I got one Gel Out Strong Dynamic Warm. It's literally like 2.5 minutes long. Then start warming the lift. It doesn't have to be this crazy hour-long process. Okay. The next one is extend your work week. So what do I mean by that? If someone's older and they're in proper recovery, you don't have to box yourself into like a 7-day work week. You can go into like a 9-day work week. So instead of like you train 4 days a week over 7 days, do it over 9 days. Okay? So the only time this doesn't work is if you train a bunch of it. If you train alone, it should be no problem. I understand if you train with 10 other people, you all together squat, whatever, this might not be. But like at the end of the day, you gotta figure out, are you doing this as like, kind of like a group activity or just trying to get better?
You're saying that with age, you can get away with not taking rest from 70 to 80.
No, the opposite. You need to rest. So what you do with age is you're not recovering. So let's just say you bench press on Monday, squat Tuesday, secondary bench press day on Thursday, then lifts on Friday. That's the week, right? But now all of a sudden you're getting a little bit older, so recovery is a little stiff. Now you go like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Wednesday. So you just extend the work day. Because why is the training week a week? I don't think anybody here's got a good answer. It just is. So you don't have to abide by that.
Josh, I have a question. In terms of recovery, like it depends on your workout to workout, right? Like sometimes you recover faster, like on a particular schedule you tend to recover faster.
I'm not talking about
I'm saying your recovery, body recovery depends on like various factors, like the diet you are having and the workout you are doing. So, so what should be a good frequency to have? Like 3 to 4 weeks is 3 to 4 times a week is what we generally do.
It not only depends on that, but also depends on like the duration of your workouts, how long they are, how intense they are. Like, it's not that simple because you could be like 60 years old with not very good recovery if your workouts are pretty short and you're not like going crazy. Where like if you train like, rest pause deadlifts and like 10 sets of 10 squats prior to that, like, you're not gonna do that multiple times a week. So that's actually be covered here in a little bit about like we're gonna go a lot into the frequency because basically I don't want to ruin what I'm gonna talk about later, but you have frequency, you have intensity, and you have volume. There's a sliding scale: frequency, intensity, volume. Okay, most people do one of those things. They high frequency, high volume, high intensity. The best people seem to do two of those things. So they might go high volume, high frequency, high intensity, high volume, but low frequency, like Branch Warren. You know Branch Warren?
Yeah.
High volume, high intensity, low frequency, the 1 day a week body part, right? So you have that sliding scale. So when we have you have high intensity, high volume, good. You just can't do all three of those things at once. That's when you have a problem. Most people don't do one of those things. I mean, they do one of those things that are similar. I mean, a lot of people don't do any of them. I'm not kind of pussies, but. Another acceptable word to use. I don't know, like, is it okay to people don't care? You guys know what that word means? Yeah. So keep that in mind though. We're going to cover that later, but three of those things: volume, intensity, frequency. Two of them would be high. That's how you optimize results. Okay. So the next will be reloading, deloading. We're going to call it. That's important as you get older. So we'll cover this again in other parts, but for reloading for powerlifting purposes, you know what the main what it should we can call is a technical reinforcement week, because that's a good chance to practice your technique. So now our bodybuilding friends are like that as here, because you know your purposes, bodybuilding, you're reloading a little lighter to enhance your mind muscle connection. So if all of a sudden you do your lateral raise and you kind of build your traps instead of your side delts, all of a sudden it's a good chance to really like go lighter, where you really feel the side delts will work. So that the bodybuilding reloads, it's to reallocate, re-educate the mind muscle connection for powerlifting. It's technical reinforcement. Okay.
You know, in terms of pushing what you not done before, or you know,
Is what now? It's like a lighter week, less volume. We're gonna cover it more extensively. Like I'm gonna go on it later, but that's the idea. Is like it's a rest week, but it's like an active recovery. So in the past, what people have done is like they'll just go really hard and do nothing. This is like an active rest week. So it's because like, okay, the reason I made you guys go heavy on bench is because a technical breakout is more likely to happen at a heavy weight. Okay, where you're not going to generally build form. So like when you hit a PR today and we actually build form, like that's like, you know, a huge win, right? Because like that's a big deal, because usually the form happens like we got your form dialed in really good, but we had to go back in lighter weight. That's usually what happens. That's why the
Such a small tweak, but it just.
yeah. So, you know, it's funny you said small tweak, but you know, it's the biggest tweak we made at the past couple seminars, honestly, has been a lot of people conventional deadlifting too wide, just moving their feet in closer. They're hitting these big PRs just by that. So a lot of times it's not like you do 10 different things, it's one little change. But that's where the reload comes in, because now, okay, so now, you know, we got you start with your hips down again. And you almost hit a PR regardless, but now you can practice when you reload, you can practice doing that right, and you know, there's no fear of like, because when you have the adrenaline kick in out of meat or whatever, it's essentially your fight or flight response. Okay, it's hard to learn a technical skill of fight or flight response, because basically it's almost like in primitive times, like, you know, you're a caveman and tiger's chasing you or something. You can't think about technique, you're just gonna run as hard as you can, get the hell away. So you build it, you know, with lighter weights. That's why it's a big deal that you got a PR and a form PR. That's very rare to have. Cool. Okay. Then of course sleeping. We're gonna cover tips. What do you guys think about sleeping? What's some ways to optimize your sleeping?
Melatonin?
So one thing which I felt is if we are planning an evening workout,
The what now?
like if we are doing workout in the evening or nights, late nights, and we have taken some caffeine, so sleeping becomes difficult at night.
Drink some beer, man. I'm just joking. Okay.
You can take melatonin.
And then the next day goes for a toss because you are sleepy the whole day and you are not able to
I
drink.
mean, the best answer is going to be the one you don't want to hear is don't do that. Because, like for instance, on reload weeks, you know how, okay, you know what's the other, I told you my first rule for you guys of meat week, right? Remember that rule? Yep. Well, not again, what was it?
know your fat ratios.
Okay, yeah. So, you know what's my rule for everybody in here though? Is unless you're highly addicted, you can't let you get headaches, don't do caffeine on reload weeks and meat week. Okay, so a funny story here is when I went to China last time, on the flight back, I don't drink a lot very often, once in a while. So I was like, it's a long flight. They just kept bringing me more drinks. And I'm like, so I forgot to drink my coffee. Every morning I have coffee and a lot of caffeine. And so I fell asleep, woke up, and they gave me some more drinks, fell back asleep. So basically, have a few drinks, go to sleep. And then by the time I got home, we went out to eat and all this stuff, and then went to sleep. It had been like 2 days since I had any caffeine. But the point being, the next day when I had it, it felt like it was like the first time again. It was like that. It's that quick that it like kicks back in. So you guys, you take a week off. If you do a lot of caffeine, you get that stimulant effect again. So I would say to you is, I would personally recommend not training with pre-workout and using a little less weight. And have you guys ever seen these studies that say like caffeine and stuff, ephedrine can add like 10+% to your weight? So if that's actually true, and you deadlift 200 kilos, and you all of a sudden do 220, if you do caffeine all the time, that seems ludicrous. Like there's no way. But when you haven't done it for a while, it might be plausible. So you just know you're not going to train as heavy. But then at the meet, when you take the caffeine, or you're going to max out or whatever, like some special day, you get that big carryover again. Make sense? So I would recommend not doing it in training if you have to train at night.
So without like the caffeine, if you're training at night, so that you're able to sleep. Like,
Yes, and go to sleep. Because
apart
you're
from
already,
general training. When is the meet which you told that?
but when you go, you're already hyping your central nervous system.
Placebo.
Right? That's if you don't do
say
any
something
caffeine.
like that.
So you're just making it worse with
like
caffeine.
having caffeine and like you can lift heavy.
I mean, that's so.
Usually helps. Yeah. Depends on other factors also. Yeah. God, कुछ हो तो वही ना. No, I don't know. Like, you know, like,
Okay, now we're going to talk a little more about bench pressing. Okay, so bench pressing. So you guys know the history of the history of the bench press very well. Okay, so what, like in a nutshell, what it is bench pressing. Basically, pressing has been kind of forefounded in the United States for the most part. Like most of the overhead pressing records, when it was contested Olympic lifts were there. Most of the bench pressing records are were there, right? So, point being, it's always been a popular sport because for a long time, Olympic lifting was the main iron sport. Well, Russians and those people, for one, started to get better at it, so that probably discouraged people. For two, it started to become more popular in general, like people like lifting weights. And if you aren't like a competitive lifter, learning a complex snatch is not like fun. It's a lot of work. Okay, if you're a power, so they opted for more bodybuilding and powerlifting. So over time, it became where people started doing, went from like just straight Olympic lifting to focusing the overhead press. So like in the 1950s, if you said, hey, what do you lift on the street, you're essentially saying, what do you overhead press? By the 60s, that started to change to bench pressing. Okay, so that's where we're at now. Is it basically bench pressing came about because people were tired of learning the strict techniques of Olympic lifting, and they got into power. And then bodybuilding became popular too because it's kind of weird for Olympic lifting. A lot of people that do it, they're not like, their physiques aren't like good in the traditional sense of what you guys might think are good. Like they have like nice traps, pretty decent backs, but like they don't, no chest, no arms, So that's not. But if you're not part of that sport, that's not a desirable physique, right? So that's kind of like how bench pressing got started. And today, obviously, is everybody here raw or is everybody equipped? Okay, good. Because I was gonna say, if this is like equipped, nothing against you. I just say bye because not that I'm against you. We're talking about how I'm going to raw bench press. Kind of two different styles of training. I'm not the expert on their style.
If I have to transition to equip, how long will it take?
It depends because you could do it pretty quickly because you hit lower and you have a wider grip. So I think with you, if you had a good equipped coach, I bet you within 12 weeks you get some really big numbers. Now, for you, you're more of a bodybuilder, it'll take you a long time. It's just different styles. So the more bodybuilding style you are, the worse off you're going to be. Okay? So, we talked, not everybody's here, I was talking earlier about that. So with the grip on the bench press, if you don't know where to grip, how do you find it?
Push-up.
Push-ups. Just do a push-up. And that's going to show you where your hands should be now. Most of you already established. Like, no one here, I didn't feel like anybody here was bench pressing for the first time. It wasn't like I was like watching people think like you were lifting. Everybody, like, obviously, even if it wasn't perfect, had lifted a lot previously. But for newer people, if you're like, how many people here are like some sort of strength coach, personal trainer? Okay, a lot of people. Yeah, so for your clients, they don't know where to put their hands, have them just do push-ups. You can measure it out. When you measure it out, just align that on a barbell. You got it. Okay. So, obviously, as you guys saw here today, what our objective to accomplish was to find your technique. So, that's, I think, why I have a lot of luck at these seminars compared to other people, is a lot of people go there to show you their technique. I don't have a technique. I'm trying to find your technique. How I do it's different. Like, we're built differently, don't you think? Like, we don't, yeah, I mean, a little bit, right? I mean, just a little bit. So, we're all built differently. So, I mean, it would be like, for instance, when I did like bodybuilding, switched from powerlifting, I did more like your style of bench pressing. I didn't really lose strength like a lot of people did, because I never, even though when I was powerlifting, I had a bigger belly, I didn't touch it. I hit my chest. So bodybuilding, all of a sudden I'm working my chest from every conceivable angle. It didn't get me smaller. It didn't affect my style. Where other people that someone like your style, if you lost a lot of weight, it would be a harder transition because it totally changed the technique. For me, it didn't change my technique. So we got to find, with all this, our goal here, the whole seminars, is we're finding your technique. I'm not teaching you mine. Because we're kind of built alike for this. Okay, so the frequency of bench pressing. Okay, we've had this come up a lot. So one of the things we're going to touch on later, we talk about periodization, is the first rule is the principle of individual differences. That means you and I are going to react, or all of us are react different to a training program, because we can do. Have you guys ever seen those studies? There's people that are quote unquote non-responders. You ever seen that? That means they don't so they do a training program and essentially they don't respond to it. Okay? That's real. That's not like a made up thing. That actually happens. So there are, everybody's a little bit different. So how often you bench press can depend on a lot of things. The easiest is how strong you are. If you bench press 200 pounds, and like you're the same individual, you get to 600 pounds, even though you've been training that whole time, 90% of 600 is going to take longer to recover from, period. Right? Remember we were talking about your central nervous system stuff, I said I don't think you're having that problem yet because you haven't got to that point yet. It's not being me, it's just saying like, there's a certain point where like that becomes more, the stronger you get, the more that matters, okay? And so that's one thing. Two is going to be like on your technique, is like, and then it's also be how much your fast twitch makeup. So the more fast twitch muscle fibers you have, the longer you take to recover, okay? So I say that's why I classify people as fast twitch muscle fibers, called easy gainers. People that are easy gainers, fast twitch muscle fibers, are generally people that put on muscle and strength easier, okay? People that are slow gainers, more slow twitch, they can train more often, they can train with more intensity, and with more volume, because it's not demanding their body neurologically nor muscularly, okay? So generally, women have more fast twitch. Yes and no. Not by definition, but there is, because women generally have more slow twitch fibers. So have you noticed how
Too fast.
women
Summer passing.
do more reps than men in percentage? It's just slow twitch makeup. It's not like good or bad as it is, but like I guarantee you got like one of those champion like female Olympic sprinters, it would be more like a man or because they're so fast and dominant and how they recover. Okay? So if someone just say go out there and someone can sprint really fast, they probably don't recover. They don't recover as fast as someone that's slow for a number of different reasons. And basically, the more fast twitch dominant you are, the stronger you are, the less often you can lift. So that's another reason like textbooks are kind of bullshit, is because textbooks teach you, if you guys have noticed, like the more advanced you get, the more often you should train, right? That's in reality not what happens. Julius Maddox, when I trained him to bench press 644, he benched twice a week. When he just drew the world record of 744, I don't know if that's actually exactly 100 pounds. But anyways, he was only once every 9, 10 to 11 days, depending on how heavy it was. So it's not like textbooks say like, oh yeah, like for Olympic lifting, a lot of times it is true because it's such a complex movement pattern This is not like people, like like West Side Barbell and people like that. They don't. A lot of times they don't do the actual full range of motion movement, but yet they can still do it in a meet. Point being, I don't think that's the best way to do it, but there is showing that you could get away with that to a point. So,
Josh,
yo,
quick question. So with Julius Maddox, you said he was benching only once every 12 days, 10, 12
Yeah.
days. Was he doing any other kind of pressing work in?
yes, he does. So initially what he did, we got the first record is he was doing like push-ups on the second day and things like that. Then now we had him doing the, have you guys seen that bandbell bar, that earthquake bar? So like put kettlebells in the end, do like some close grip decline work and stuff with that. Real light, but yeah.
Right, okay.
But like actual like real bench pressing. You know who, there's a guy named Glenn Shabbat. He bench pressed 665, so it'd be like 302 kilos back in like a long time ago, like 15 years ago. But that's before power was more equipped, so they didn't really make a big deal of a raw lift. They just kind of said, "Oh yeah, that guy didn't do it with a shirt," type of thing. He was bench pressing heavy even less. He was supposedly once a month heavy, once a month light, then inclines and declines.
Wow.
So of individual differences, that's the biggest one is how often. So the point being, like, answer the question of how often to bench press, 80% or so of people seem to do really well with twice a week. Okay? So I would say with anybody, your clients, whatever, start them 2 days a week and then see where to go from there. Okay? Go ahead.
How useful is the
The what now? Okay, so I don't think that works as well for powerlifting for a number of reasons. Because that was do you know the inception of that chart? Back in the weightlifting days in the 60s, and all they did is they took averages of like what they did is they took like what everybody was doing and averaged it out, right? So you go in there with a lot of suppositions. The first one being they were all doing it right. Well, back then they didn't have drug testing, and now they have drug testing people lift more. So obviously it wasn't perfect, because even if people are taking drugs now, they're still having to work around. It would be easier to lift, not worried about a test, and worried about even though people cheat tests. It's still a pain in the ass to go deal with a test, right? Where if you could just take whatever you want, like they could then. And so people are lifting more now with being tested, for one. For two, so you're going there just thinking this is the right way. Well, who says it's the right way? Maybe it wasn't. Also the biggest downfall would be is with the complexity of movements. Snatches, clean and jerks are neurologically so much more complex that it's just a totally different ballgame. That's like comparing it's like comparing doing gymnastics on the bar to like doing a push-up. So it's a totally different ballgame. So I don't think the chart has enough intensity. If we pulled up the chart and looked at it, a lot of the times there's too much volume also, like submaximal weights and things too, because there's a lot of grinding in powerlifting. So I don't think the chart lets you get away with grinding. So I don't use that at all for powerlifting purposes. We're going to go over that in a little bit, so hang on the periodization part, okay? But yeah, a lot of it's going to be with, you're going to find out, what I'll do is I'll come up with a standard template type of deal. So if you were training with me, I would start you all off, unless I knew something otherwise, fairly similarly, and make adjustments as you go. So that's the most important thing you got to know is your client's feedback. So you know who Al Vermeil is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he was saying one day the most important lesson he ever learned in coaching is he walked up to, this is like a football practice, and he said football is smashing. It's basically a rugby with pads. So he said one day people get real fired up and enthusiastic. He said one day he went out to practice and everybody's kind of moaning and barely can stretch out and stuff. And the head coach called everybody in and he said, "Go inside." I said, "What do you mean?" Go inside. I can tell you, I'll drag an ass today and it's gonna be a bad day. So the point being, that's what you're looking for is feedback from people. And And I think that's where the art of this comes in. Is like, okay, because when you say like the issue I have with like saying 10 to 20 sets per body part per week. Well, you might bust your ass and like you take a set of 10 to like death, and you rate like an RP of like 8 when it's like a 10 because you're so intense. Where I might be like a powder puff and like I'll have people send me a workout. And, they literally will put an RP of 10 for everything. And I'm like, dude, like this, like you like fight to the death every single rep, every single set, 4 or 5 days a week. Like, how are you even walking around? So like that's the problem with like giving these general recommendations without like taking people's feedback. Is I'm the powder puff pussy, say you're like the maniac Branch Warren, and then I say we both do 12 sets a day. That's why like high intensity training, Mike Benson and all that stuff, or heavy duty training works so well for some people. Because people it works well for is like if they're doing a lateral raise, they don't take it to failure here. They have a partner lift their arms up and they take it to failure on the negative. Then when they get to failure there, they hold it right here and they contract their delts as hard as possible, almost pass out. Where somebody else, once they can just get to here, they can't get to here, they get to stop here, they quit. So, unfortunately, that's the biggest, hardest part is like feedback. That's why books and programs and stuff that I sell. So I wouldn't be telling you this to I won't want to hurt myself, but it never is going to be as good as real coaching because you have to take into account the feedback. That's why I always say someone that tells you how do you get to where you're going good at this. I said as many hours as you can working with people because you just know their feedback. Like so, to the point now where if I email you your training program, and you're like, hey, Josh, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well, and like a paragraph like that. Then like the next week, 2 weeks later, you're like, done. I know something's up because like that's not your personality. So you have to learn some feedback of learning these little cues of like, okay, you're usually like this happy, you go up first. Now it's like short. Something's not right. So you might be like, hey, I have something to work for. It might be like, I say I gave you like kind of scale with training, like yeah, it's really cool. I might have to tell you like, look, we got 2 more weeks in this block. You need to suck it up. Or you know what, if I'm exhausted, we're gonna make it fear the course this way. Okay. So the other thing with bench pressing is too, I should say, is so bodybuilding movements get your best transfers to bench pressing more than squats and those. So like who were we talking about earlier about you were asking about like just doing movements with a bodybuilding system. Okay, so I think you get away with most on like squats, the most just only doing the main lifts of squats and deadlifts, okay? But on bench pressing, you have to do like bodybuilding movements. So a leg extension doesn't necessarily transfer to a bigger squat or not very much. There's a time and place that we make when you use it in there. I throw it in people's plans for hypertrophy offseason, that kind of stuff. But like cable flies and things like that are like kind of bodybuilding movements can actually help you build a bigger bench press. So these bodybuilding movements, so that's one of the big differences in how you train lifts is bodybuilding movements are much more crucial to bench pressing than they are to squats and deadlifts. Okay, like so say I'm just making this number up, but let's say you're 75% of your best bench press by only bench pressing and nothing else. Okay, but you'd be like 90 to 95 of your best squatting, that accessory works the extra 10%. But bench pressing is 25, 30%, it's a big difference. Okay? So overloading the bench press. You guys do any kind of overloading, anybody in here? Yeah? No? Okay. Let me tell you what overloading is. Handling heavier weights. Okay, so my favorite way to overload the bench press is very simple. I like to do the slingshot. Is slingshot here in India?
Yes.
You know what it is?
Yep.
Okay. So it doesn't, but that we can get around that. So if you go, the other one I like to do for that is reverse bands. Okay. So go on Instagram if you guys have a chance today. I just put up a post in the tab right over here on reverse bands for deadlift. The exact same. We can just take the word bench press and insert it and mean the same thing. It's a way to feel heavier weight. The other one I like to do is static holds. Okay, that's just holding a heavy weight 5 seconds or so